The taxi pulled up to 847 Maple Street, and my chest tightened. 18 months abroad, and I was finally home. I paid the driver with shaking hands, my eyes locked on the house where I'd grown up. The blue shutters my father had painted the summer before he died. The porch swing where Mom used to read to us. Everything looked the same, yet something felt wrong. I wheeled my suitcase up the cracked walkway, fishing for my key. Before I reached the steps, the front door swung open. My sister Vanessa stood there, arms crossed, her expression a mixture of surprise and something else I couldn't quite name. Guilt, maybe. "Kira," she said, my name flat in her mouth. "You didn't tell me you were coming today." I stopped mid-step. "I texted you 3 days ago. And why would I need to announce myself? This is my house too." Vanessa's husband Trevor appeared behind her, coffee mug in hand like he belonged there. Like he owned the place. My stomach dropped. "We need to talk," Vanessa said, not moving from the doorway. "Can I at least come inside first?" My voice cracked despite my effort to sound calm. She stepped aside reluctantly. I walked into the living room and froze. Mom's floral couch was gone. The coffee table Dad built was replaced with some modern glass thing. Vanessa's wedding photos hung where our family pictures used to be. Boxes labeled Trevor's office were stacked in the corner. "What's going on?" I whispered, though I already knew. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow, stealing my breath. Vanessa gestured toward the new leather sofa. "Sit down." I remained standing, my suitcase handle still gripped tight in my fist. Trevor disappeared into what used to be Dad's study, clearly uncomfortable. "Good. He should be." "You've been gone for over a year," Vanessa started, her tone rehearsed. "Someone needed to take care of the house. The pipes burst last winter. The roof needed repairs. Bills kept piling up. So you moved in?" My voice rose despite my attempt to stay composed. "Without asking me?" "I tried calling you," she said, defensive now. "You were always too busy with your engineering project in Singapore. Time zones, meetings, whatever excuse you had. Someone had to be responsible." Responsible. The word felt like an accusation. I'd been working 16-hour days for 18 months, saving every dollar to come home and finally start my life here. I'd sent money for utilities and taxes every single month without fail. And this was what I came back to? "Where's Mom's furniture?" I asked, my throat tight. Vanessa waved her hand dismissively. "Storage unit. That old stuff was falling apart anyway. We needed to make the space livable." Livable. She was erasing our parents like they'd never existed. Like their memory was an inconvenience to her interior design plans. I set down my suitcase slowly. "I want to see the deed." Something flickered across Vanessa's face. Fear. "What?" "The property deed. I want to see it." She hesitated too long. "It's at the lawyer's office." I didn't sleep that night. Trevor had set up their bedroom in what used to be Mom and Dad's room. I stayed in my old childhood bedroom, which thankfully they hadn't touched yet. My stuffed animals still lined the shelf. My high school swimming trophies gathered dust on the dresser. But lying in my old bed felt wrong now. Like I was a guest in my own history. At 3 a.m., I pulled out my laptop and logged into the county records website. It took 15 minutes of searching, but I found it. The property deed for 847 Maple Street. My hands trembled as I clicked the link. The document loaded slowly, line by line. Owner of record, Vanessa Marie Dalton and Trevor James Dalton. Transfer date, March 15, 4 months ago. My name appeared nowhere on the document. I read it 3 times, certain I was missing something. Dad had died 2 years ago, leaving the house to both of us equally in his will. Mom had passed 3 years before that. The house should have been in both our names. Should have required both our signatures to transfer. But there it was, legal and official. Vanessa owned the house. I owned nothing. My chest felt hollow. She hadn't just moved in. She'd stolen my inheritance. I searched my email for anything about the house, any document I might have signed without realizing. Nothing. No transfer papers. No quitclaim deed. No legal notice of any kind. That's when the anger started building, slow and hot beneath my ribs. Morning came too early. I found Vanessa in the kitchen. Scrambling eggs like this was a normal family breakfast. Trevor was already gone, his car absent from the driveway. Coffee? She offered, not meeting my eyes. I saw the deed, I said. Her spatula stopped moving. What? County records. The house is in your name. Only your name. I kept my voice level, cold. When exactly were you planning to tell me you'd stolen my inheritance? Vanessa's face flushed. I didn't steal anything. You signed the papers. I never signed anything. You did. Last year, remember? I sent you that stack of documents about Dad's estate. You signed them and sent them back. My mind raced backward. She had sent papers, insurance forms and tax documents that needed signatures after Dad died. I'd reviewed them carefully, signed what needed signing, and mailed them back. But there had been nothing about transferring the house. Those were estate documents, I said. Not property transfers. One of them was a quitclaim deed. Vanessa's voice took on a defensive edge. You signed away your half. You just didn't read it carefully. The accusation stung because part of me wondered if it could be true. Had I been so overwhelmed with work that I'd signed something without reading it properly? No. I'd been careful. I knew I'd been careful. I want to see the document with my signature. Vanessa's lawyer had an office downtown in a brick building that smelled like old paper and furniture polish. His name was Marcus Brennan, and he had the kind of face that made lying look easy. Smooth, practiced, completely untrustworthy. He spread the quitclaim deed across his mahogany desk. As you can see, Miss Dalton, your signature is right here. I stared at the document. There was my name, Kira Dalton, written in handwriting that looked almost like mine. Almost, but not quite. The K was wrong. I always made the vertical line of my K with a slight curve. This one was perfectly straight. This isn't my signature, I said. Brennan smiled patronizingly. It's been authenticated and notarized. Your sister sent this to you in Singapore, you signed it, and returned it with proper notarization. Everything is legal. Then show me the notarization certificate. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. He shuffled through papers, produced another document. The notary seal looked official, but the date was wrong. According to this, I'd signed the document on April 3rd. But I'd been in a hospital in Singapore on April 3rd with a severe case of dengue fever. I'd have medical records to prove it. I need copies of everything, I said. The deed, the notarization, the envelope it was supposedly mailed in. Brennan's smile tightened. I'm afraid I need your sister's permission to release those. I'm named on the document. That makes me a party to it. Nevertheless, I stood up. Get me the copies by tomorrow, or I'll get a subpoena. I called the one person I knew would understand. Felix Torres had been my father's best friend, a semi-retired real estate attorney who'd helped Dad buy the house 30 years ago. He'd bounced me on his knee when I was little and taught me to play chess when I was 12. Kira. His voice boomed through the phone, warm and familiar. I heard you were back. Your sister mentioned it. Of course she had. Probably trying to get ahead of the story. Felix, I need your help. I explained everything, the deed, the forged signature, Brennan's smug face. He listened without interrupting, the way he always did. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Meet me at my office in an hour. Felix's office was smaller than Brennan's, cluttered with case files and photos of his grandchildren. but his eyes were sharp as he examined the copies I'd managed to get from the county recorder's office. "This is a forgery," he said flatly after 5 minutes. "And not even a good one. Look at the notary seal. See how it's slightly smudged? That's from a stamp that's been photocopied and printed, not an original embossing." Relief and rage roared in my chest. "Can we prove it?" "We can try. But Kira, you need to understand, this is going to get ugly. This is your sister. She stopped being my sister when she stole my home." Felix nodded slowly. "Then let's get your house back." The first step was getting my medical records from Singapore. I called the hospital where I'd been treated for dengue fever and requested documentation of my admission. They emailed them within hours. On April 3rd, the day I supposedly signed away my inheritance, I'd been unconscious with a fever of 104 degrees. Felix filed a formal complaint with the state notary board, alleging fraud. We also filed a lawsuit against Vanessa and Trevor for quiet title, asking the court to declare the deed invalid and restore my ownership. Vanessa called me that evening, her voice shaking. "How could you? I'm your sister." "Exactly," I said. "You're my sister. How could you?" "I was trying to help. The house needed work, and you weren't here. So you forged my signature and stole my inheritance? That's help?" "I never forged anything." But her voice cracked, unconvincing even to herself. Trevor got on the line. "This is ridiculous. You're tearing apart your family over a misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding when someone forges legal documents," I said coldly. "That's called fraud." I hung up before he could respond. The next family member to call was our Aunt Brenda, Mom's sister. "Kira, honey, can't you two work this out?" Everyone in the family knew by now. Vanessa had apparently sent a group email painting me as the villain, the ungrateful sister who'd abandoned the family home and was now making false accusations. "She forged my signature, Aunt Brenda." "Are you sure? Maybe you just forgot signing it?" The doubt in her voice cut deep. "I was in a hospital bed when I supposedly signed it. I have medical records." Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, "Oh." One by one, family members called. Most believed Vanessa's version, that I was being vindictive. A few, like Aunt Brenda after seeing my evidence, shifted sides. The family was fracturing, right down the middle. My cousin Nathan texted me, "Standing with you. This is wrong." My uncle Paul sent a long email about family loyalty and forgiveness, clearly siding with Vanessa. I stopped answering calls. This wasn't about winning family popularity contests. This was about justice. Felix warned me it would take months, maybe longer. "Real estate litigation moves slowly," he explained. "And Vanessa's lawyer will fight every step." "I have time," I said. "And I have the truth." While we waited for the court date, I started documenting everything. Every dollar I'd sent for house expenses over the 18 months I was abroad. Every email where I'd asked Vanessa about the house's condition. Every text message where she'd assured me everything was fine. What I found made my blood boil. I'd sent $47,000 total for property taxes, insurance, utilities, and maintenance. But when I requested receipts, Vanessa could only account for $23,000. The rest had vanished. Where did the other $24,000 go? I demanded over the phone. Repairs. The roof, the plumbing. Show me the invoices. She couldn't. Because they didn't exist. Felix added financial fraud to our lawsuit. "She's been using you as a piggy bank," he said grimly. "Taking your money while planning to cut you out entirely." The betrayal went deeper than I'd imagined. This hadn't been a spontaneous decision. Vanessa had been planning this for over a year, taking my money while forging documents to steal my share. I moved out of the house and into a short-term rental. I couldn't stomach living under the same roof as Vanessa anymore, watching her pretend everything was fine. She tried to convince me to drop the lawsuit. Think about Dad, she pleaded during one of her calls. He wouldn't want us fighting like this. Dad left the house to both of us, I said. You're the one dishonoring his wishes. I'm trying to protect his legacy. You were never going to come back here and live. You were going to sell it to strangers. That stopped me. How do you know that? You said so. Before you left for Singapore, you talked about selling once you got back and using the money to buy a condo in the city. I had said that 2 years ago when the house was full of grief and memories I wanted to escape. But things had changed. 18 months abroad had taught me that home mattered. That roots mattered. People are allowed to change their minds, I said. But that doesn't give you the right to forge documents. I didn't, she stopped herself. I did what I had to do. There it was. Finally. Admission. I'm recording this, I lied. Her sharp intake of breath. You can't use that in court. I hung up, but I made a note of her near confession for Felix. The preliminary hearing arrived on a cold October morning. Vanessa and Trevor sat on one side of the courtroom with Marcus Brennan. Felix and I sat on the other. The judge, a stern woman named Phyllis Ortega, reviewed our filing without expression. This is a dispute over property transfer, she said. Miss Kira Dalton claims her signature was forged on a quitclaim deed. Miss Vanessa Dalton claims the signature is authentic. We'll need a handwriting expert. Brennan stood. Your Honor, the notarization was properly executed. By a notary in Florida, Judge Ortega interrupted, reading from the document. While Miss Kira Dalton was supposedly in Singapore. That's interesting. I caught the look that passed between Vanessa and Brennan. Panic. Felix stood. We have medical records proving Miss Kira Dalton was hospitalized in Singapore on the date in question, Your Honor. The notarization is fraudulent. Judge Ortega made a note. We'll also need the notary to testify. This hearing is continued for 60 days while we gather evidence. In the meantime, Miss Vanessa Dalton, you and your husband will continue residing in the property, but you are prohibited from making any alterations, selling, or refinancing. It wasn't the victory I wanted, but it was progress. Felix hired a forensic document examiner named Dr. Helena Yates. She examined my signature on the quitclaim deed under microscope and compared it to verified samples of my handwriting. Her report was damning. The signature is a simulation, she wrote. Someone traced or copied Miss Dalton's signature but failed to replicate the subtle pressure variations and flow characteristics of genuine handwriting. This is not an authentic signature. Felix grinned when he read it. They're done. But Brennan fought back. He hired his own expert who claimed the signature was genuine, that I was lying to steal property from my sister. The accusation stung, but I knew the truth would win eventually. What worried me was the notary. According to the documents, a woman named Patricia Vance had notarized my signature in Miami, Florida on April 3rd. But I'd never been to Florida, never met Patricia Vance. Felix tracked her down. She was a mobile notary who worked out of her home. When he called her, she had no memory of notarizing anything for me. I do hundreds of documents a month, she said. But I keep detailed logs. Let me check. The next day, she called back. I have no record of notarizing anything for Akira Dalton on April 3rd or any other date. If someone used my seal, it wasn't me. Her notary seal had been stolen 6 months before the deed was supposedly signed. Armed with Dr. Yates's report and Patricia Vance's testimony, Felix filed a motion for summary judgment. We weren't asking for a trial anymore. We were asking the judge to declare the deed void immediately based on overwhelming evidence of fraud. Vanessa's reaction was explosive. She showed up at my rental apartment, pounding on the door at 10 p.m. You're destroying our family. I opened the door but didn't let her in. No, Vanessa. You destroyed it when you forged my signature. I was trying to protect our home. Tears streamed down her face, but I felt nothing. Trevor lost his job last year. We were going to lose our apartment. I needed a place for us to live. The truth finally. Not some noble story about maintaining the house, but desperation. She'd stolen my inheritance to solve her own problems. You could have asked me for help, I said quietly. Would you have given it? She wiped her eyes angrily. You were thousands of miles away, living your dream life while I was here drowning. You weren't coming back. You said so yourself. That didn't give you the right to forge legal documents and steal from me. I'm your sister. Then act like it. I closed the door. The hearing for summary judgment was scheduled for early December. Felix was confident. They have no defense. The handwriting expert proves forgery. The notary proves her seal was stolen. Your medical records prove you weren't where the document claims you were. It's over. But I couldn't shake the anxiety. What if somehow Brennan found a loophole? What if the judge sided with Vanessa out of sympathy? Felix squeezed my shoulder. Trust the process. Justice isn't always fast, but it usually arrives. I spent those weeks preparing for every possible outcome. I researched property law, reviewed every document a dozen times, and rehearsed my testimony until I could recite it in my sleep. Nathan, my cousin, checked in regularly. How are you holding up? I'm tired, I admitted. Tired of fighting family. Tired of lawyers and courts. I just want my home back. You'll get it, he said confidently. Vanessa screwed up. She knows it. That's why she's so desperate. Desperation was right. Vanessa sent me a letter, actual handwritten letter, apologizing and begging me to drop the lawsuit. She offered to pay me back every dollar I'd sent, promised to move out voluntarily if I'd just stop the legal proceedings. She's worried about criminal charges, Felix explained. Forgery is a felony. If you press charges, she could face prison time. I hadn't thought about that. Prison felt too far, too cruel. I wanted my house back. I wanted acknowledgement of what she'd done. But I didn't want to destroy her life entirely. Let's win the civil case first, I said. Then I'll decide about criminal charges. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every moment since I'd returned from Singapore, every conversation and confrontation. Tomorrow would determine whether justice prevailed or whether my sister's lies would somehow win. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, tell your lawyer to check the title insurance policy. A friend. I stared at the message, confused. What did title insurance have to do with anything? I forwarded it to Felix with a question mark. He called me at 7 a.m., his voice sharp with excitement. Kira, this changes everything. What do you mean? The title insurance policy on the house. When Vanessa transferred the deed, she got a new policy. But title insurance companies investigate the transfer before issuing a policy. If they approved this deed, they either missed the forgery or knew about it. Why does that matter? Because if they knew it was fraudulent and issued the policy anyway, they're liable. And title insurance companies have very deep pockets. They're much more likely to settle quickly than risk a fraud judgment. Felix spent the morning before the hearing on the phone with the title insurance company's legal department. By the time we arrived at court, he had a settlement offer in writing. The insurance company would pay me $200,000 plus legal fees. In exchange, I'd release them from liability. It wasn't my house, but it was something. No, I said. I want the house. Felix smiled. I thought you'd say that. Judge Ortega took the bench at exactly 2 p.m. She'd reviewed all the evidence, both experts' reports, the notary's testimony, my medical records. Her expression revealed nothing. This is a troubling case, she began. The evidence of forgery is substantial and compelling. Dr. Yates's analysis is thorough and convincing. The notary's testimony that her seal was stolen is corroborated by police reports. And Miss Kira Dalton's medical records conclusively prove she could not have been in Florida on the date in question. Vanessa's face had gone pale. However, Judge Ortega continued, this court must also consider that this is a family dispute. Families are complicated. People make mistakes. My heart sank. She was going to let Vanessa off with a slap on the wrist. That said, the judge's voice hardened, fraud is fraud. And forgery is a serious crime. This court finds that the quitclaim deed dated April 3rd is invalid due to fraudulent signatures and notarization. The deed is hereby voided. Relief crashed over me like a wave. Furthermore, Judge Ortega continued, ownership of the property at 847 Maple Street is restored to joint tenancy between Kira Dalton and Vanessa Dalton, as per their father's will. Miss Vanessa Dalton, you will pay your sister $45,000 in restitution for the funds you misappropriated, plus her legal fees in this matter, within 90 days. Vanessa stood shakily. Your Honor, I can't afford. Then you'll sell your portion of the property to your sister or find another way. But you will pay. Dismissed. Walking out of that courtroom felt surreal. Felix was grinning, shaking my hand, talking about next steps. But I felt numb, disconnected from my own victory. I'd won. The house was mine again, shared ownership restored. Vanessa would have to pay me back. Justice had been served. So why did I feel so empty? It's normal, Felix said gently. You've been fighting for months. Your body doesn't know how to stop. Vanessa brushed past me in the hallway, Trevor supporting her elbow. She didn't look at me. Brennan followed them, his expression sour. That night, I drove past the house. The lights were on. Through the window, I could see Vanessa and Trevor arguing. He was gesturing angrily. She was crying. Part of me, the sister I used to be, wanted to knock on the door and make sure she was okay. But I drove past. Some betrayals run too deep to forgive quickly. Nathan took me out for dinner to celebrate. You did it. You actually did it. It doesn't feel like winning, I admitted. That's because you're a good person. Bad people feel great when they win. Good people feel complicated. He raised his glass. To justice, even when it hurts. I clinked my glass against his, wishing I felt the triumph everyone expected me to feel. 2 weeks after the judgment, Vanessa called. Can we talk? I almost said no. But curiosity won. Okay. We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown where neither of us had memories. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. I'm sorry, she said immediately. For everything. The forgery, the lies, taking your money. All of it. I waited, saying nothing. Trevor and I are getting divorced, she continued. He's the one who suggested forging your signature. I know that doesn't excuse what I did. I made the choice. But I want you to know I wasn't alone in this. Trevor. I should have guessed. He'd been sketchy from the beginning. He said it would be easy, Vanessa went on. That you'd never check. That you'd be in Singapore for years and wouldn't care. I convinced myself he was right, that I was doing you a favor by managing the house. You weren't managing it. You were stealing it. I know. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. I can't pay you the $45,000 right away. But I'll sell my half of the house to you. That should cover it. This was what I'd been waiting for. Sole ownership. No more shared anything with the sister who'd betrayed me. How much do you want for your half? I asked. Market rate. Whatever it appraises for. Felix can handle the paperwork. We sat in silence for a moment. For what it's worth, Vanessa said quietly, I really am sorry. I know I destroyed our relationship. I know you'll probably never forgive me. But I needed to say it anyway. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. She'd aged in the months since I'd come home. New lines around her eyes. Gray hair she hadn't bothered to dye. She looked defeated. "I don't forgive you yet," I said honestly. "But maybe someday." The appraisal came back at $380,000. Vanessa's half was worth $190,000. With the $45,000 she owed me, I'd need to pay her $145,000 to buy her out completely. I had some savings from my Singapore job, but not enough. Felix helped me secure a mortgage for the remainder. Within 6 weeks, the paperwork was complete. On January 15, 18 months after I'd left for Singapore and 3 months after I'd returned to find my home stolen, I became the sole owner of 847 Maple Street. Vanessa and Trevor moved out on a cold Tuesday morning. I stayed away while they packed, not wanting another confrontation. When I finally returned that evening, the house was empty again. They'd taken all their furniture, their belongings, even the curtains they'd hung. The place echoed as I walked through it. Every room felt hollow, abandoned. I started in the basement, where Dad's old furniture had been shoved into storage. The floral couch was dusty but intact. The coffee table needed refinishing, but the bones were good. Over the next few days, I hauled everything back upstairs, room by room. Mom's china went back in the dining room cabinet. Dad's books returned to the shelves. The family photos I'd taken down before leaving for Singapore found their places on the walls again. Slowly, painstakingly, I rebuilt the home Vanessa had tried to erase. Spring arrived, bringing warmth and new growth. I'd taken a job with a local engineering firm, turning down a lucrative offer to return to Singapore. Some things were worth more than money. Roots. History. Home. The house needed work. The roof really did leak in one corner. Vanessa hadn't been lying about that. The plumbing was temperamental. But I tackled each project methodically, learning as I went. Nathan helped me paint the kitchen. "You seem happy," he observed. "I am," I realized. For the first time in years. Being back in my parents' house, surrounded by their memories, felt right. Not sad or haunted like I'd feared, but comforting. Like they were still here, approving of my choices. I planted a garden in the backyard where Mom's used to be. Tomatoes, peppers, herbs. The physical labor felt therapeutic, grounding. Felix stopped by one afternoon with a bottle of wine. Housewarming gift. We sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset. "Any regrets?" he asked. I thought about it. About fighting for the house? No. About how it destroyed my relationship with Vanessa? Yes. Relationships can heal, Felix said. If both people want them to. I wasn't sure I wanted that yet. The wound was still too fresh. 6 months after the final judgment, I got an invitation in the mail. Vanessa's divorce from Trevor was finalized, and she was having a small gathering to celebrate her new beginning. She'd invited only close family. I almost threw it away. But something made me keep it. The party was at Aunt Brenda's house. I arrived late, unsure if I even wanted to stay. Vanessa spotted me immediately, her face lighting up with surprised hope. "You came." I came, I agreed. We didn't hug. But we talked, carefully at first, then more naturally. She told me about her new apartment, her new job at a dental office. I told her about the house repairs, the garden. "I drove past last week," she admitted. "It looks good. Like home again. You could visit sometime," I heard myself say. "If you want." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'd like that." It wasn't forgiveness yet. But it was a start. Over the following year, Vanessa and I slowly rebuilt something resembling a relationship. She came for dinner once a month. We were careful with each other, polite, avoiding topics that might lead to arguments. She never asked to move back in, never suggested she deserved a share of the house. She seemed genuinely content to let me have it, to acknowledge that she'd been wrong. One evening, after too much wine, she asked, "Do you think Mom and Dad would be disappointed in me?" I considered the question carefully. I think they'd be disappointed in what you did, but proud that you owned it and tried to make it right. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I hope so. The house continued to be my sanctuary. I worked on it constantly, replacing windows, refinishing floors, updating the kitchen. Each improvement felt like an act of love, honoring the home my parents had built. Felix retired officially, throwing a big party. At the celebration, he pulled me aside. I'm proud of you, Kira. What you did wasn't easy. Standing up to family never is. You made it possible, I said. No. You made it possible. I just held the paperwork. 2 years after returning from Singapore, I hosted Thanksgiving at the house for the first time. Aunt Brenda came, along with Nathan and his wife. Vanessa came too, bringing her new boyfriend, a quiet accountant named Michael who seemed genuinely kind. We gathered around Dad's old dining table, now refinished and beautiful again. As I looked at the faces around me, I felt something settle in my chest. Peace, maybe. Or just acceptance. The fight for the house had cost me dearly. It had fractured my family, consumed months of my life, cost thousands in legal fees. But it had also taught me something crucial. Sometimes standing up for yourself, even against the people you love, is the only way forward. After dinner, Vanessa helped me with dishes. Thank you for inviting me, she said quietly. Your family, I replied. That doesn't change. She smiled, and for the first time in years, it looked genuine. The legal battle was long over, but its effects rippled outward in ways I hadn't expected. Other people reached out to me, friends of friends who'd heard my story. People dealing with estate disputes, family members who'd stolen inheritances, property that had been fraudulently transferred. I couldn't help them all. But I connected them with Felix and other lawyers I'd met. I shared my story, hoping it might help someone else recognize the warning signs earlier than I had. You've become an advocate, Nathan teased. Who would have thought? I hadn't planned it. But the experience had changed me, made me realize that many people face similar betrayals and feel powerless to fight back. The house itself became a symbol of that fight. When people visited, they often commented on how beautiful it was, how loved. I'd take them on tours, showing them the refinished floors, the updated kitchen, the garden blooming in the backyard. What I didn't usually mention was what those improvements represented. Every nail driven, every wall painted, was an act of reclamation. I wasn't just fixing a house. I was rebuilding trust in myself, in my ability to recognize wrong and fight it. 3 years after that taxi dropped me off at 847 Maple Street, I stood in the same spot, looking at the house with completely different eyes. The blue shutters had been repainted. The porch swing had new cushions. The garden flourished with vegetables and flowers. But the biggest change wasn't visible. It was in me. I'd learned that family loyalty doesn't mean accepting betrayal. That sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones we love most. That forgiveness is possible, but it's slow and complicated and doesn't erase the past. Vanessa and I had something now that resembled sisterhood again. Not what we'd had before, that was gone forever, burned away by lies and legal battles. But something new, built on honesty and accountability. The house was mine, truly and completely. The deed bore only my name now, no shared ownership, no complicated arrangements. Every decision about its future was mine alone. Some people asked if I'd ever sell it. The answer was always no. This house represented more than property or investment. It was proof that you could fight for what was yours and win. That justice, though slow and painful, was possible. Standing on that porch, key in hand, I thought about the woman who'd arrived here 3 years ago, exhausted from travel and naive about what awaited her. She'd been unprepared for betrayal, shocked by her sister's cruelty, uncertain if she had the strength to fight back. I wasn't that woman anymore. The fight had forged something harder in me, something resilient. I'd learned to trust my instincts, to stand firm when others tried to make me doubt myself, to choose justice over false peace. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Michael proposed. Can we celebrate at your place this weekend? I smiled, typing back, congratulations. Of course. Bring champagne. The invitation felt significant. She was asking, not assuming. Respecting boundaries we'd both learned the hard way. Our relationship would never be what it was before Singapore, before the forgery and lawsuits and courtroom battles. But it was something real now, built on truth instead of comfortable lies. That evening, I walked through each room of the house slowly, touching the walls, the furniture, the photographs. In the living room, Mom's floral couch sat exactly where it belonged. In the study, Dad's books lined the shelves in the order he'd preferred. The kitchen smelled like the lemon polish Mom had always used. But there were new things too. My engineering awards on the mantle. Modern appliances I'd installed. A home office where I worked on consulting projects that let me help other families navigate property disputes. The house was a bridge between past and present, between the family I'd come from and the person I'd become. I poured a glass of wine and sat on the porch swing, watching the sun set behind the oak trees Dad had planted when I was born. The neighborhood was quiet, peaceful. A few kids rode bikes down the street. Someone was grilling in their backyard, the smell of charcoal drifting on the evening air. This was home. Not because of the walls or the address, but because I'd fought for it. Because I'd refused to let someone else's betrayal define my future. Felix called, his voice warm. Just checking in. How's the house? Perfect, I said, and meant it. And you? I watched the sunset paint the sky orange and pink, the same colors I remembered from childhood evenings on this same swing. I'm good, Felix. Really good. After we hung up, I stayed outside until full dark, wrapped in a blanket against the spring chill. The house lights glowed behind me, warm and welcoming. My house. My home. My hard-won peace. Tomorrow I'd call the contractor about finally fixing that leaky roof. I'd work on my client presentations and maybe start planning Vanessa's engagement party. Life moved forward, as it always did, carrying the past but not trapped by it. But tonight, I just sat in the gathering darkness, feeling the weight and rightness of belonging. The deed sat in a fireproof safe in my office, my name printed clearly on the ownership line. No forgery could touch it now. No betrayal could steal what I'd reclaimed. I thought about the title I'd given my story when I first started telling it. My sister took over our family home while I was abroad. I came back with the deed in my name. It sounded simple, like a straightforward victory. But the reality had been messier, more painful, more complicated than any title could capture. The victory wasn't just getting the house back. It was learning that I could fight for myself, that I could face down family pressure and doubt and guilt and still choose what was right. It was discovering that sometimes love means setting boundaries, even with the people you've known your whole life. The house represented all of that now. Every room held not just memories of my parents, but memories of my own battle to honor their legacy. The papers Felix and I had pored over late at night. The moment Judge Ortega declared the deed void. The first time I'd walked back inside as the sole owner, knowing no one could take it from me again. A car pulled into the driveway next door. My neighbor, Patricia, waved as she got out. Beautiful evening. Sure is, I called back. House is looking wonderful, she added. You've done amazing work. Thank you. The compliment warmed me more than she could know. As I finally stood to go inside, I paused at the front door, one hand on the frame Dad had built and Mom had painted. The wood was solid beneath my palm, real and permanent. I'd come home to betrayal but left with something more valuable, the knowledge that I was strong enough to protect what mattered. That I could be betrayed and survive it. That family ties, though strained and tested, could be rebuilt if both people were willing to do the work. The house lights illuminated the porch as I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new projects, new moments of both joy and difficulty. But tonight, in this house that was finally, completely, legally mine, I was exactly where I belonged. And that was worth every battle I'd fought to get here.